foggy night, shadows creeping slow, whispers in the wind, where Johnny go? Blood on the hay, pitchfork gleam, midnight moon, a witness to a scream, barn doors creaking, secrets kept tight. Old man Joe seen a deadly sight, no justice found, just a broken plow, crows peck the ground, dead man's vow. Murder in the meadow, lies thick as dust, promises shattered, betrayed by trust, chaos in the cornfields.
I'm here with Country Diggers. Today we're going to do the Ballad of Laura Fair. Now, we're going to be reading from The Bloody Century, True Tales of Murder in 19th Century America by Robert Wilhelm. He does the murderbygaslight.com site too. So we'll be reading from him, and also I'll be singing The Ballad of Laura Fair by Dor Collier. All right, The Ballad of Laura Fair by Dor Collier. Now I'm going to read it. It's in the tune of Kenny Rogers' The Gambler, but I just can't get the tune right. And so I'm just going to read it. I can't get it right this time. And I know The Gambler, but I just can't get it right. All right. Dusty old case, antique shop floor. Well, I couldn't resist. I just had to see more. Was a fine fiddle, seemed pretty intact, with a book upon the back. Pages tore out from a magazine, handwritten letter fell out in between. Said, what you are holding there is the fiddle of Laura Fair. Sold off as a child bride till the old man died. So she took a ride way out west. She'd been told there was silver and gold to be had. It didn't sound so bad. Gold fields of Eureka she plied a trade as a working girl doing any job that could be found in any town to get her fair share. Miss Laura Fair. She married the sheriff and shared his bed before he shot himself dead. And the baby did cry, who would be the pride of young Laura's eyes, to get up from upon high. She took the baby girl and headed down the road on the Comstock load. Figured she could do well running ladies' hotels, suit her to a T. That's where she met AP. That Frisco lawyer seemed like a good feller. So she took him in, and her heart he did win. She followed him through thick and thin. This Kentucky colonel, he was a married man, but he had a plan. To be alone would be a pity while he was in Virginia City. Such a lovely pair, him and Laura Fair. Laura, now I can sing this. Laura Fair, sing sweet as a bird with yellow hair. Laura Fair, what's that you got on your fiddle there? Give us a song, sweet Laura Fair. Kentucky colonel said his wife he would leave. Laura believed her hope sprang eternal, but she told that old colonel, you better do what you say, or it will be your judgment day. Colonel stood her up, Colonel let her down, Colonel split town. So she sold the hotel, bid it fairly well, went to San Francisco. Kentucky colonel swore his wife was gone. Laura played along, till the word got around his wife was coming back to town. And he wouldn't leave her, so a widow she would be. She bought a 4-barrel pistol, one that wouldn't fail, and a long black veil. She boarded the ferry. Her mind wasn't very clear of what she would do if they appeared. She saw the colonel and his wife walking hand in hand. She couldn't stand. She said she couldn't stand. Said, you're driving me wild. You ruined me and my child. You tore us apart, and she shot him through the heart. They took him to the main cabin of the El Capitan. That's where Laura ran. She cried, I meant to slaughter. He ruined me and my daughter. I was in despair, said Laura Fair. Laura Fair, Laura Fair, sweet as a bird with yellow hair. Laura Fair, what's that you got on your fiddle there? Give us a song, sweet Laura Fair. Kentucky Colonel took 3 days to die. Judge said, hang her high. Well, it's just not in fashion to let a crime of passion go unpaid. Rabble led the way. But up in high places, she still had a few friends. So they tried her again on technicality, a plea of insanity. Well, the judge agreed and they set her free, 'cause everybody knew the colonel done her wrong. A woman too strong to be left for long. Like the old saying warns, love has no wrath like a woman being scorned. Laura toured the land, Laura had her say, until her dying day. She always played the band, singing in the mining camps, fiddle in her hand, book on her back. Laura Fair, sing sweet as a bird with yellow hair. Laura Fair, what's that you got on your fiddle there? Just give us a song, sweet Laura Fair. All right, as I said before, that's in the tune of Kenny Rogers, The Gambler. And if you want to listen to it, you can look it up on YouTube. It's The Ballad of Laura Fair by Dor Collier. And it's on iTunes too if you want to buy it or something. But on to the story. The Woman in Black. A prominent California legislator was sitting with his wife and son on board the Oakland-San Francisco ferry boat El Capitan, the evening of November 3rd, 1870. They did not notice the woman dressed entirely in black, wearing a broad-brimmed black hat with a black veil covering her face as she approached them. From the folds of her dress, the woman pulled a derringer and shot the man in the chest. The family recognized the woman in black then. It was Laura Fair, and she was finally ending her tumultuous affair with Alexander P. Cretton. Date, November 3rd, 1870. Location, San Francisco, California. Victim, Alexander P. Cretton. Cause of death, gunshot. Accused, Laura D. Fair. She was born Laura Hunt in Holly Springs, Mississippi. And at the age of 16, she was married to a New Orleans liquor dealer named William Stone, 20 years her senior. Within a year, Stone died of cirrhosis of the liver. Soon after, she married Thomas J. Grayson, who was also a drunk, the violent kind. After less than 6 months with Grayson, Laura fled to California with her mother. After a brief stay in San Francisco, she went to Shasta, where she met and married another older man, an attorney named William Fair. Laura and William had a daughter they named Lillian Laureen. The family moved back to San Francisco, but William was unable to establish himself there. Despondent over his finances, William Fair put a gun to his head and ended his troubles. Laura and her mother moved to Sacramento, and with her meager inheritance, they bought a boarding house. When this venture failed to pan out, she turned to acting, performing in a play in Sacramento and another in San Francisco. Her reviews were good, but acting was not for Laura. She took her pay and moved again, this time to Virginia City, Nevada, just as the Comstock Silver Lode was making everyone rich. She bought a hotel called the Tahoe House, and this time it paid off. Alexander Cretton also traveled to Virginia City to get a piece of the silver bonanza. Crichton had been in the California legislature and had a successful law practice in San Francisco. But in 1864, with a wife and 7 children to support, he needed more money. While his family waited in San Francisco, Crichton went to Virginia City to establish a practice there. He stayed at the Tahoe House. Laura Fair was instantly attracted to the tall, handsome lawyer, and before long they spent all their nights together in Laura's bedroom. But this was no idle dalliance. Soon they were declaring undying love for each other. And when Laura suggested marriage, Crichton agreed. Laura, of course, did not know that Crichton was already married. In early 1865, Laura learned the truth when Crichton's wife, Clara, arrived in Virginia City with her children. Laura was upset, but took Crichton at his word when he promised to divorce his wife and marry Laura at the earliest convenience. He rented a house for his family, but kept a room at the Tahoe House for business reasons. Crichton would shuttle back and forth between the two, unwilling to give up his family or the lovely Laura Fair. Variations of this scheme would continue in Virginia City and San Francisco for the next 5 years. Clara Crichton was aware of Laura Fair, but appeared to believe her husband when he said they were only friends. Yeah. At one point, she even agreed to his suggestion that Laura live in a room in their house. Wow. Yeah, blind as a bat. Laura, still anxiously waiting for Crichton to divorce his wife, agreed to whatever he proposed. He sent her to Indiana, where divorce laws were more lenient than California, and promised to marry her there. Crichton never showed up. In 1870, the Crichtons were back in San Francisco. Laura Fair had moved there as well and was living with her mother. Alexander Crichton would still visit Laura Fair, but now the visits often ended in arguments. Laura had purchased a Colt revolver, and one night she fired at him as she chased him down her staircase. Another time, she threatened suicide if he would not leave his wife. In desperation, Laura finally gave up on Alexander Crichton and married a man named Jesse Snyder. Crichton was livid. The thought of Laura with another man was driving him insane. He wrote her a long letter describing his state of mind. No, I cannot be content. You are to me the sun, air, life, everything. And without you, as we are now, there can be no existence. I am wretched, insufferably, infinitely wretched. I have no heart or mind for anything. Can think of nothing but you. Day and night I wander about like a ghost. Just think, if he hadn't written that letter to her, then he wouldn't have got killed. Okay? He should have left well enough alone. The letter moved Laura, and she agreed to meet with Crichton. They reconciled and once again pledged undying love to each other. Now each would need a divorce, and each made a solemn vow to begin the proceedings. Laura made good on her promise. Crichton did not. Laura's divorce became final on October 5th, 1871. Clara Crichton had gone east, and Laura believed that she was finally going to become Alexander's wife. But when Laura learned that Crichton had not divorced his wife, something inside of her snapped. She found out that Clara would be returning soon to San Francisco, and Crichton had purchased new furniture in anticipation. Laura went to a gunsmith and traded her Colt revolver for a 4-barrel Sharps Derringer. On November 3rd, Laura dressed all in black with a black veil covering her face, followed Crichton to the train station in Oakland and witnessed the loving reunion of Alexander and Clara. She followed them as they boarded the ferry boat El Capitan. The family took a seat on deck and Laura sat nearby watching them. Then, as the boat was leaving the harbor, she stood up and approached the Crichtons. She pulled the Derringer from the folds of her dress and shot Alexander Crichton once in the chest. Laura hurried away and was chased by Crichton's son Parker. When he confronted her in the wheelhouse, she said, "I did it, certainly. Yes, I did it. I was looking for the clerk on the boat to give myself up. He has ruined me and my child, and I meant to kill him." Alexander Crichton was taken to his home, where he managed to live for 48 hours with a bullet in his heart. The trials were March 27th, 1871, and September 22nd, 1872. The question of jurisdiction delayed the prosecution of the case for a time. The boat was traveling between Alameda County and San Francisco County, and it was not immediately clear in which county the murder had occurred. It took an official survey of the harbor to determine that Alexander Crichton had been shot in San Francisco County. The sensational trial of Laura D. Fair lasted 26 days, with the courtroom filled to capacity every day. Among the celebrities attending the trial were women's rights leaders Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who sympathized with Laura's plight. While there was no question that Laura Fair murdered Alexander Crichton, her defense attorneys argued that she was not responsible for her actions, as she was suffering from partial intellectual insanity and partial moral insanity, while her years of emotional abuse from Crichton would alone be sufficient to drive her insane. Laura Fair also suffered from retarded menstruation. Okay, a condition that made her raving mad for several days prior to each menstrual period. She got away with murder. On the witness stand, Laura claimed to have no recollection of what happened on the boat. The jury was not convinced by this argument. After deliberating less than an hour, they returned with a verdict of guilty to first-degree murder. She was sentenced to be hanged on July 28th. Yeah, first-degree murder is premeditated. And she did premeditate. The trial was appealed, and in February 1872, the verdict was overturned on technicalities. The following September, the case was retired. It was noted that during this trial, Miss Fair dressed entirely in black and wore a black veil. This time, Laura Fair was found not guilty by reason of temporary insanity. I don't think it was insanity because she planned it. I mean, she went and purchased a Colt revolver, and then she went and traded that Colt revolver for a 4-barrel Sharps Derringer. She dressed all in black. She followed them to the train station and on the ferry boat, and then she shot him in the chest. She shot him in the heart. That's premeditated. But anyway, the trial was appealed. Okay, the temporary insanity. Verdicts The first trial was guilty of first-degree murder, and it was overturned on appeal to not guilty. Aftermath, the verdict was almost universally criticized, with newspapers complaining that the court had given a license to kill to spurned adulterers. And he was an adulterer, okay? He did wrong, and he shouldn't have did what he did to her. But what she did was worse. It was murder. Okay, anyway, these people. Okay, though acquitted of murder, Laura's notoriety made her life miserable in San Francisco. In December 1872, Laura gave a public lecture entitled Wolves in the Fold before an audience of 2,000 in Platt's Hall in San Francisco. It was a bitter trade against the judge and jury of her first trial, and against the San Francisco press and clergy. The lecture was well received by the crowd. Eventually, sensation around the case died down, and although the story resurfaced from time to time, Laura Fair lived peacefully until her death in 1913. You know, all these murder ballads and murder stories and everything, I think some would be justified with self-defense claims and stuff, but I mean, like this one was premeditated. She should have got convicted. All right, well, hope you enjoyed.